All right. Welcome to Bleav in Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland. I'm Will Vandervort. Year number 4, Levon, and we are doing it different. How about that, man? This is kind of different for me and you, ain't it?
I tell you what, man, this is kind of cool though. People get to see my beard combination that I grew out. I think it's great. It's wonderful. We're moving on up. That's for
We're,
sure.
we're moving on up. This is year 4, as I mentioned, for me and Levon, or season 4, I should say. Our third year doing it, season 4, as we begin here talking about the Tigers and the season that will be, and we hope it will become. So we do this for those people that have never listened to us. Obviously, you can find us on, Spotify and Apple and all those places you get your regular podcast, audio podcast. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years. And if you want to go back and listen to those old episodes, you can. We appreciate it. But now we're doing something new. We're on YouTube with the Clemson Insider. And I want to first thank Robert McRae, the publisher of the Clemson Insider, my boss, as he's allowed us to use his platform, the Clemson Insider platform, to do our show. And I know, Levon, you're greatly appreciative as well because
Yes.
it's pretty cool, man.
No question about it. I mean, for him to allow us to be on his channel is big time. Thank you very much. It really helps us not to do as much work and to really we're like we're like Netflix.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you for letting us be like Netflix, getting off your channel. But we're so happy to be doing this show, talking about what we love, talking about Clemson football and college football, and some of the other stuff we talk in between as well. So me
Yeah.
and Will are a great combination. I think you're going to have a lot of fun listening to us, and I can't wait for this season to start.
Yeah, for people to know, me and Levon, we will kind of get off topic a little bit. We
A
we
little
try
bit.
not to. As you know, Levon Kirkland, not only did he play for the Clemson Tigers, his name's in the Ring of Honor, but he also is one of the legends of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is who I say, and I think a lot of Steeler fans agree with me. Nobody wore the number 99 better than Levon, and we're gonna every once in a while we'll go down that Steelers road. So if we do, we apologize in advance. It's in our blood. We're gonna talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. You see, my hat is on today. Not that we're going to do that today because we're not, but
Right.
sometimes that happens. So we appreciate you guys. If you're seeing us for the first time on YouTube, if you could please like us and give us a thumbs up there that you like us, and download as well, and subscribe to our channel there on the Clemson Insider YouTube page. We greatly appreciate that. We got Scott Millsap from Facebook already leaving a comment saying this is awesome. You guys are here on Facebook. Scott, we're glad to be here on Facebook, and we
Thank you,
appreciate you
Scott.
watching right now, man. We're going to be here every week. So every Tuesday, you're going to see me and Levon come on here and talk football for about an hour or so. We might go a little bit longer because we sometimes get a little winded.
Yeah,
So
time.
yeah, if you ever listened to me, you understood that. Yeah, that I'm that way, it happens. I apologize ahead of time, but we're glad you guys are joining us. You can also see us on Twitter at Clemson Insider as well. You can also find it on my account at Steeler Will, and also at Levon's account at Levon_Kirkland. So we appreciate those, all the different ways you can find us on social media platforms. Listen, we got a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of things going on with Clemson football as we get ready for the season opener, which starts, Levon, here in a couple weeks, 13
Yes.
days to be exact, as the
Mhm.
Tigers go to Wallace Wade Outdoor Stadium to see to visit the Duke Blue Devils in what I think is going to be a pretty good game. And we're going to talk about this a lot next week, obviously. But Levon, just a little kind of preview. I really like this Duke football team, and I don't think this is going to be the kind of game. If you're a Clemson fan out there and you're thinking this is typical Duke and you just go ahead and check W, and you might be mistaken, right?
Oh, I think so. I think this Duke team is much improved. If you watched them last year, they did a great job, man. They really compete, and I don't think this is going to be an easy win down there at Wade Wallace Stadium. I remember going there myself in 1989 and getting upset by the Duke Blue Devils. So no, I don't think this is going to be an easy win. And I think if you're the Clemson Tigers, you got to take this game real seriously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, Duke's got a real good football team. They're bringing about 15 or 16 starters. They got a quarterback who is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
Right.
They're a very physical football team. So there's a lot to go on. There's a lot going on there. They're going to be a big challenge. So we're going to talk a little bit about that next week. This week, we got a couple other things on mind. We're going to talk about ESPN picked FSU to beat Clemson in the ACC championship game. So according to the ESPN people, that Clemson is not going to make the college football playoff. Clemson's not even going to win the ACC. And we're going to kind of get into that, give you mine and Levon's opinion on that. Then we're going to ask kind of like, how good do you think this Clemson team is? And so we'll kind of break down a little bit of things, kind of give you a little preseason look at the Tigers, if you will, and what's been going on in practice. And then also I'm going to ask Levon, is it dangerous for this Clemson team to be proclaiming themselves with the goal of winning the national championship? Levon just mentioned earlier how they, in 1989, that was a team that was in that position and got upset by the Duke Blue Devils in that fifth game of the season that derailed that championship. We're kind of going to go into that and why that is dangerous to go ahead and put that out there as a player or team maybe. And then after that, we'll talk about realignment a little bit. Is realignment finished for now? And where does Clemson stand in all this? And where does the ACC stand in all this? And so we'll break all that down. And so if you're watching, you can leave a comment to us. Those on Facebook, we appreciate you. We're trying to, we can see you as there as well. We got others that are seeing us. We got Alex Dodd listening to us out there.
Alex.
So we appreciate you, Alex. Got Jeremiah Woods. We appreciate you as well. Scott Millsap, as we mentioned, and Mark. I guess, Mark, I hate if I say your name wrong, Kingery. It looks like that's how it says. So we appreciate you guys listening. Jacob Geddes also just now said he's watching. So we appreciate you guys over in Sumter, South Carolina, watching us as well. And but Levon, let's go ahead and kind of get things rolling here. And first of all, before we do that, we just thank Robert McRae and the Clemson Insider, one of our sponsors. Mm-hmm. They're going to be with us all year long and allowing us to do the show and here. But then also our other sponsor, who's a big Steelers fan and was our sponsor last year. Yes. And those are the good people at Tip It Back Sports in Greenville. We appreciate them as they're also going to be sponsoring us for a second year in a row. And Levon, I'm real thankful that Tim Cinco and his crew are going to be back with us for another year. And we're going to try to get with them and do a Steelers Day up there for them here in a few weeks, maybe when the NFL season gets going.
That would be awesome. We were going to do it this year, but things happen. But the one thing is, and we said we were going to talk a lot about the Steelers, but the Steelers really travel. I mean, you go anywhere in the country, there is a bar dedicated to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and South Carolina is no different. Actually, there's several bars that are dedicated to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and so we really appreciate that. We're glad you're fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It works out really well for me and Will. So
it does. When I travel, it does.
Fun. We encourage you to come out, have some fun with us. I know I may look intimidating, but I'm really not that intimidating. I'm actually a guy you can come up and talk to. I know Will doesn't look intimidating, but trust me, Will is kind of intimidating. Watch out for Will. Not for me, but for Will, you got to watch out for.
Let's see. Who's going to be more intimidating, the sports writer or the guy who played middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't know. I think number 99 rumbling at me would be a little more intimidating. But
it's the 99 number. The 99 number looks more intimidating than the actual person is.
But in all honesty, Levon, you're the most approachable guy there is. I mean, dude, you've always been that way from the first time me and you met back in the day when I was a young scribe and you were a football player. You've always been just like a down regular dude, man. And so I've always appreciated that about you. So guys, he's definitely approachable.
I have a good story about that.
What's that?
I was dating a young lady in Pittsburgh. We were pretty serious. Mm-hmm. And although she was from Pittsburgh, she wasn't really a football fan. So I took her to her first game live. So after the game was over with, we get in the car I'm about to get something to eat. And she says, hey, Levon, can you tell me something? I'm like, sure. She's like, who's that number 99? And I'm looking at her like, what? She's like, who's that number 99? I'm saying, I said, it's me. What are you talking about? She said, they can't be you. She said, that's not the sweet guy that I date. That number 99 was vicious and mean. That could not possibly be you. And I was like, well, honey, when we're out there, I got to be a certain way. When I'm here with you, it's different. But she's like, oh my God, I can't believe how aggressive you are, how mean you were. I'm like, yeah, well, it's in me. It's just another side of me. So,
yeah.
So to tell the folks out there, yeah, I have a side of me, but for the most part, you guys are going to get the sweet Levon Kirkland.
And when we do that live podcast from Tip It Back Sports, we'll let you guys know when and what day that's going to be. But right now, that is not only is it a Steelers bar, and it's a great Steelers bar, but you can also watch other NFL games there. They want you to come and watch them all. Sunday Ticket has a new home, so if you're not getting Sunday Ticket, they will have it, and they will have the games broadcast live for you each and every Sunday there. They're also going to do all the college football games, so Clemson, South Carolina, Furman, Wofford, whoever in the state you want to watch. If you want to watch SEC, ACC, it doesn't matter. They have all the college football games on Saturday as well. And obviously, of course, the Clemson Tigers are a big part of that. And we appreciate Tim and the folks over there at Tip It Back Sports Grill. You can find them at 215 Pelham Road in Greenville. If you haven't gone over there, you need to. They got a bunch of stuff. Like got live bands. They got trivia night on Mondays. They got a bunch of stuff they do during the course of the week. So go check them out over there at Tip It Back Sports Grill, 215 Pelham Road in Greenville, South Carolina. We do appreciate them. And Levon, we've got a couple people, man. They're like got some smack talk going over here. Yeah, we got Jacob Geddes. He's a Dallas Cowboys fan. He says, forget them Steelers. Care nothing about the Steelers, Levon. It's all about them Cowboys, sir. What'd you say about that?
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are going to win the Super Bowl this year, right? Just like you do every year. You guys are going to win the Super Bowl.
So, but Jacob, we appreciate you, man, because we know if you're watching, you're a Clemson Tiger, and that's all that matters, right?
Right.
So, so we appreciate you watching as well as the others. Josh Godfrey, we appreciate you. Says he bleeds orange in Moncks Corner, South Carolina. Go Tigers. We got Lamar Silver Fox himself. He says Levon Kirkland from Lamar. So Mr. Brown said that. So thank you, Mr. Brown. We appreciate you.
Mr. Brown.
Levon, let's go ahead and kind of get going with the show.
Okay.
There's a lot of going on right now. And so the season's about to start. Everybody's got their predictions out there. The AP polls out. The coaches polls out. Clemson, by the way, ranked number 9 in both those polls. Florida State's ranked number 8, which is weird. It's weird that in the media, not so much the coaches poll, because the coaches poll is a little different. The media poll, though, picked Clemson number 9, Florida State 8. Yet most of the same media picked Clemson to win the ACC. So kind of don't understand that. I know some of it's different. There's a couple people maybe from California that voted and stuff, but I thought that's a little weird considering most of that same media picked Clemson to win the ACC, and yet now they got Florida State ranked ahead of them to start the year. And then that kind of brings us to our first subject. ESPN picks FSU to beat Clemson in the ACC championship game. And here's what's weird about it, Levon. This is where I'm going to go with what's weird about it. So follow me. They say Mark Schlabach did the article. Great writer, by the way. He's written some great books on Bobby Bowden and the Georgia Bulldogs. So nothing against Mark. He's a super writer. But he writes that he thinks Clemson's going to beat FSU in the regular season at Death Valley. And then Florida State's going to go on and cruise the rest of the season and meet Clemson in the ACC championship game. And then they're going to beat Clemson in the ACC championship game to win the ACC. Now, here's the problem I have with that. Florida State beat Clemson in the ACC championship game if they're playing Clemson in the ACC title game. And the reason I say that is because that's a game Dabo Swinney doesn't lose. That's a game Clemson doesn't lose. They're 7-0 in Charlotte in ACC championship games. You know who's never played an ACC championship game? Mike Norvell.
Florida State?
Florida State. Well, Florida State's played in them, but not Mike Norvell, Florida State Seminoles.
Right, yeah.
Mike Norvell is 2-13 all time against AP top 25 teams. Okay. Clemson has owned this conference. They've played these players have played in an ACC championship game. They've won ACC championships. So you're telling me a team that's never been, that had to scratch and claw its way to get to the finish line, is going to go in and beat a team who's been there, done that, and knows how to handle the situation? I have a problem with that. If that's how you're saying Florida State's going to win the ACC, I don't see that. Now, if you say if Florida State's going to beat Clemson in the ACC championship, in the regular season, then Clemson's not going to get there and Florida State's going to beat somebody else, yeah, I'll give you that one. But if Clemson's sitting there in Charlotte on a neutral field, I'm sorry, ask Notre Dame how that works.
Yeah, I think that everybody is kind of jumping on the bandwagon of Florida State during this preseason. They looked at what they did as far as the portal is concerned, recruiting is concerned, and they also look at what Clemson last was like. So you look at that Tennessee game, and you're thinking, oh, man, Clemson has a lot of work to do. And they probably do have some work to do. They're missing some pieces. But Clemson is still, I would say, still one of the elite teams in the ACC. They've been that way for forever, it seems like. They have the organization. They have the culture. They have the players. Now they have a superstar as far as the offensive coordinator is concerned that's going to come in, and he's going to help that offense become better. The defense should be a little bit better, although you are missing some guys like Murphy, which is big time important. But I think the defense is going to be just fine. So I think really it's a lot more of that preseason talk. It sounds good. It gets everybody kind of riled up. But I think you're right, Will. Florida State hasn't really shown me a whole lot. They made some runs. They got a little better, but I'm curious to see what they're going to do this year. The pressure is on them a little bit to be a better team, and to win the ACC title is a big, tremendous jump for them. So the season's going to tell it all. But I think that's what it is. You saw Clemson, you're so used to them being so dominant, going to the playoffs. In the last 2 years, they haven't gone to the playoff. They've had some quarterback issues. When before that, you had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, never a quarterback issue. So Krapnick is playing his first game, and we'll see how, his first year being a full-time starter, we'll see how that goes.
Well,
but I think it's probably the hype with Florida State, and everything looks sunny. And you look at Clemson, you're like, ugh, it's gloom and doom. They haven't been to the playoffs in the last 2 years.
They've only won 11-3 last year.
It's only 11-3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think people are a little critical right now.
No,
not only the national media, but also the Clemson fans, because we're so used to success.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so used to our Clemson Tigers winning. And now they lost, oh my God, they lost 2 games in the regular season. Oh my, we're going down in flames. I would say calm down. We're going to be okay.
Well, Florida State, to give you an example, look, here's why my concern is with Florida State getting back to the ACC championship game. First of all, I think Florida State's going to be a very good football team. I think their floor is only nine wins. Okay, so 9-3 is worst case scenario for me for Florida State. Best case, obviously, I think it's 11-1 and a chance to win the ACC title. But here's the thing I have with Florida State, and I think we've talked about this before. Me and you've talked about this off the phone and stuff. They opened the season, like you said, against LSU. Okay, that is a tough game. Okay, that's a game where, I would say right now, I would say LSU's probably going to win it. I know it's down in Orlando, and it'll be a neutral site game technically, but LSU is a really good football team that played really, really well at the end of the last year as well. And they played in some tough games, not what Florida State did. I know Florida State fans are like, well, hold on a second. We won the last 6 games of the season. Will, what are you talking about? Yes, you did. But you also played the team with the best record of those 6 teams was Syracuse, who finished the year 7-6. Okay, so you didn't play anybody of substance like LSU did to finish the year. That's why, like LSU, I'm on that bandwagon. I think what Brian Kelly's got down there is going to be big, and I think they got a chance to be really good. And they're going to contend for that SEC championship, I think. Florida State, if you lose that game, and then you lose to Clemson in week 4 on September 23rd in Death Valley, now you're 2-2. So here's the first thing. National championship, bye-bye. It's gone. Florida State, you ain't even in the mix now for a national championship. That's already gone. Not in the first month of the season, and you're done. How do your string of players from the transfer portal, which half of your team is built on, these are guys who've only been with you a couple years at the most. They haven't gone through the wars. They weren't there when the team was, having those losing records and was struggling, with Willie Taggart and all that. They weren't there for those. I know Jordan Travis was, and you got Jordan Travis to lean on. That's great, and he's outstanding quarterback. But how does the rest of the team handle all of a sudden they're knocked out of a chance to even play for a national championship? Now, yeah, they can still win the ACC. But here's the problem, Levon, with that. On November 4th, they play at Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh is a team I picked to finish second in the ACC. I picked them to play Clemson. Because Pittsburgh, by the way, you know how good Pittsburgh is? What people don't realize. Pittsburgh can run the football. They got probably the best offensive line in the ACC.
Yeah.
And then they can stop the run, and they have probably the second best defensive line in the ACC. So if you're telling me automatically Florida State, who hasn't done anything in the last 8-9 years, is going to go to Pittsburgh, and you're going to give them an automatic W to beat Pittsburgh to advance to the ACC championship game. And, oh, by the way, the next week after playing that physical game with Pittsburgh, they got to play their rival Miami the very next week. Yeah. So you're telling me they're going to survive both those games and make it to an ACC championship game? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, Will, I think it's always tough when you got so many new players. When you got majority of your starters or whatever who's from the transfer portal and trying to get that chemistry together. Because really, in college football, you don't have a long time to prepare. Unlike in the NFL, you have OTAs. Guys are throwing together. It's not that way in college. You got the preseason, and now you jump right into the season. Mm-hmm. That is going to be a little difficult. And you never know who's going to get hurt. If their starting quarterback is going to get hurt, then what? And that's a question for a lot of teams. Right. So I think Florida State is a team that is kind of a wait and see what happens. You don't quite know. But the thing that you do know about Clemson is Clemson's going to be well prepared. They have a great culture. I think they have improved by getting their new offensive coordinator, Riley. I think they're better than probably where they were last year. I think the only question about Clemson is, how will the quarterback play be? Will it be improved? Will the wide receivers be better this year? Will they be able to stop the run on a more efficient level? So everybody all over the country, basically, they got questions. And you won't know until they start playing some real football.
And speaking of questions, we got people that are reaching out on Facebook and other places, leaving us questions. We will get to those questions. Some of those we'll definitely answer in the next.
Wow, Will, this is new for us, man. We got questions.
Yeah, we got questions, Levon. And so please keep bringing those questions. We'll try to get as many as we can and answer those questions for you. Some of them I think we'll be able to answer here in the next segment for you guys when we start talking about the Tigers and what we expect this coming season. But just one more little thing on this, on Florida State, Clemson situation here is everything you said is right. Like, we don't know. There's so much happening before the season starts. And I think Florida State's going to be a very good football team. When you look at their personnel, their top 22 players are as good, or you can even argue say are better than Clemson's top 22. But what makes a team a championship team is not the top 22. Mm-hmm. It's your top 44 or your top 88, if you will. And Clemson and what I mean by that is Clemson's depth is better. And then, as you mentioned, the culture. Okay. we know what Clemson's culture is. We saw it the last 2 years. Clemson was knocked out of an ACC championship race early in 2021 when they lost at Pittsburgh. They could have folded. Instead, they won their last 6 games, including a win over the number 10 team in the country, where they just beat the snot out of them in Wake Forest. So they played a tough schedule at the end of the year and beat the snot out of them, beat their rival on the road to finish the year strong and get to 10 wins, which is big at Clemson. And then last year, when when they lost to South Carolina and they were knocked out of the ACC, the national championship hunt at that time, after a devastating loss to your arch rival, that game you should not have lost, as we all have talked about. What did Clemson do, though, the next week?
A game that really, if you just run the ball, you win the game.
You win the game. Oh, yeah. No doubt. But what they do the next week? They responded, and they went and kicked North Carolina's butt to win another ACC championship, when they could have just said, you know what, we're not going to make it to the college football playoff anyway. Why do we care? They could have said that, but they didn't, because winning that ACC was important to them. So we know how Clemson responds. We know how Clemson answers to things. That's what we don't know about Florida State. And yes, they did win their last 6 games season last year after they started 4-3. They lost 3 consecutive games to NC State, to Wake Forest, to Clemson. But again, I'll talk about who they played. They didn't play anybody that just blew you away down the stretch. So I want to know what it's like when they have to play that tough physical game like a Pittsburgh, and your ACC championship is on the line. When you go to Pittsburgh, if you lose to Clemson, that ACC championship's on the line when they go to Pittsburgh there on November 4th. And so that's going to be a great game. It's going to be a physical football game. How does Florida State respond? And that's what I want to see from Mike Norvell and the Seminoles.
Well, I think you have a point, Will, when you say about Mike Norvell. What big games have they really won since he's taken over? I mean, what trailblazing game have they won? I think people sometimes they fall in love with the front of the jersey, the name on front of the jersey. And Florida State, no question, has a great tradition. And they started off in the ACC, and they were gang bang. I mean, they basically dominated. But Clemson caught up, and some other teams, quite frankly, caught up with Florida State. And they're making a run, but I haven't seen them win that really big game yet. And I'm curious, can they do that? Can they win that big game? I'm not so sure.
I'm not either. I mentioned the stat earlier, Mike Norvell. Now, Florida State in the past has won big games when Bobby Bowden was the head coach and when Jimbo Fisher was the head coach. But under Mike Norvell, they haven't. They went 0-3 last year, the 3 biggest games of the year last year, and they went 0-3 in those games. They lost to a ranked NC State team, they lost to a ranked Clemson team, and they lost to a ranked Wake Forest team. And by the way, they had Wake Forest in Tallahassee a week after Wake Forest just lost to Clemson in a heartbreaking overtime loss. And so they had Wake Forest right where they wanted them. And Levon, Wake Forest went in there and kicked butt. They went in there and kicked Florida State's butt. A Florida State team that's supposed to have a better roster than Wake Forest, supposed to be a better team than Wake Forest. Wake Forest went and kicked their butt. Why did they do that, Levon? I think it's because of the head coach at Wake Forest. That's why.
Well, I think Florida State, until they prove me wrong, they're kind of a team that kind of, if they're behind or anything like that, they go right down to the gutter. If they're winning, if they're doing well, they'll play well. But it takes a little bit more than that when you're talking about being a championship team. A championship team is a team that's able to go on the road after maybe they didn't perform the week before and win that game in a convincing fashion. Or they lose certain guys and other guys step up. And in the last few years, you've seen that with Clemson, even though for Clemson University has been down years the last 2 years.
If for Clemson standards, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a great.
Don't get me wrong. It's all going to show up on the field.
Right.
You can talk. We can sit here and talk all we want to. And we do that for entertainment value. But the game is going to be played on the field. So can Florida State actually strap them up and play ball for 60 minutes? I haven't seen that to my satisfaction yet.
No. And I mean, you go back to the Oklahoma game last year, an average Oklahoma team. I mean, literally was average. They were 6-6,
Oklahoma team.
and Florida State's 9-3 in that game. And Florida, I mean, you can make a strong argument Oklahoma should have won the game,
Right?
And they had Florida State beat. And so now credit Florida State for finding a way to win the game and doing what they need to do to win, and you give them all the credit in the world for that. But that's a great example, Levon, of what you're talking about. Like, what do we know about this team, and how do they have that killer instinct, a championship instinct that you need to have? And is their head coach one of those guys that can help them down that road? I don't know. We're going to find out. That's the beautiful thing. And they play LSU on September 3rd on a Sunday night. It's going to be the only game going on, and we're going to find out a lot about the Seminoles right off the bat on how good they can be. Hey, look, me and Levon may change our tone come September 9th when we're on this show after that LSU game.
I mean, we'll watch that game pretty closely, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know. LSU is going to be a really good team this year. They're going to be a tough team. I don't know if Florida State is going to be able to win that game. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's change gears, and it kind of goes into a lot of people asking questions, and this is kind of where we can answer some of those questions. How good can this Clemson team be? And so, first of all, we'll go ahead and just go straight to the questions, Levon. I think that's always the better way to get answers from guys. And I think you, the one South Carolina fan that came on our podcast, and he just put 31-30 20 times. So we appreciate you doing that. Congratulations. You got your win. Enjoy it. Clemson will see you, I guess, in November. Right now, though, we're talking Clemson football. And so, Levon, we had a lot of people ask questions.
Tell that fan this movie ain't over with. This is a sequel. Yeah. And we usually get that rent money.
Yeah, you go to Columbia.
Yeah, it's rent time. So we want that money.
Yeah, so if he can keep listening here in a few months, and we'll talk about that story.
Yeah,
how much rent Clemson's collected through the years at Williams-Brice Stadium. Let's see. So we got a couple people that have asked questions, and I'll apologize, guys, as I'm going back. So I'm having to. This is from Justin Kirkland. Is this any relation, Levon?
We probably are in some way. Aren't we all related in God?
Technically, we are. We're all related in some way. But he wanted to know, Levon, do you think the offense will improve this year? That's the big question.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think it will. I think last year we just not clicking.
Especially late in the year.
The offense didn't really go with the trigger man. And we wasn't aggressive enough. It was kind of, in a lot of ways, we kind of did the same thing a lot. And good teams are going to pick up on that. I don't think our wide receivers was quite there. I thought we had a really good running game. We could run the ball pretty much on anybody. And even in Tennessee last year, we moved the ball from 20 to 20 pretty well. But we just couldn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the significant change that we made with Riley being our offensive coordinator, that you may not see it right away, but I think as the season goes on, and let's say players are all healthy, nobody gets significantly hurt, I think this offense is going to be a lot better.
Yeah,
I think it will use whatever strength we have to our advantage. And we have a running game plus a quarterback who can also move as well. If we can get that rolling and we can get our receivers to make plays that we're accustomed to seeing, then, yeah, it's going to be a better offense. No question about it.
Yeah, I think this year that's going to be a better offense for a couple reasons. Obviously, the first, I think, is Garrett Riley. I think he instantly brings a different kind of play calling, a different kind of attitude, if you will, to the offense, something similar to what Chad Morris was back in 2011 when Clemson needed to just change things up offensively. And that worked out well, as we saw. I think when you look at the way I think he's going to use these running backs, we've heard Will Shipley already talk about how he's going to get the ball in so many different ways. And I think, first of all, Will Shipley's going to run the football still, and so is Phil Maffa. They're going to run the ball And don't think Clemson's just going to throw the ball all over the place, because if you go back and look at last year's TCU, it's a team that averaged almost 200 yards a game rushing. They had a running back who ran for over 1,400 yards, didn't even play in the national championship game. So basically you had a 100-yard rusher per average in there playing. And so I think that is a big deal with this offense. And I like the way what I've seen at practice is the way they spread you out. And the way they're going to use Jake Brittany, still the tight end. Guys, I know you've been begging for the tight end to be used, and I think it's coming. It's coming. I like the way they're using him. He's going to be spread out in different situations. Levon, I did not one time, now I didn't get to watch all the practices, as you know, but one time did I see Jake Brittany still have to line up and block anybody. He was going out for passes and running routes and stuff. So they're going to use a tight end different. Weapon. Yeah, they're going to use a tight end different. They're going to run the ball in a different way where you're going to take advantage of this offensive line. And, Levon, I love this year's offensive line, and I've been telling fans this on the message boards over at ClemsonInsider.com. This is why I love this offensive line this year, because it fits Garrett Riley's scheme. Their athletic offensive line, they can get and move around. They're going to do a lot of pulling and a lot of things like this that's going to take advantage of the speed they have on the edges and also take advantage of those running backs. And they're going to take that athletic offensive line, and they're going to put them in different kind of schemes. And so you're going to, yes, are they going to be able to line up and block, move forward on that third one? Yes, I think they are. But I think because of the way they're going to be able to use this offensive line in this scheme, it's going to really help the running game a lot. And so we've heard the defense talk about it in practice. Like it's a headache for them in practice. They've said it in the spring. It was a headache for them. Now they're saying it in the summer. That's continued. That's good for the defense to have to go up against this offense, and the offense is having this kind of success in practice because we know how good the defense is and how good they're going to be, right? So it's good to hear that the offensive line and the offense is having success. I'm really excited about these guys, but there's reasons why I think they're – and I know everybody's like, oh, Levon, the wide receivers. Oh, my gosh. Remember this name. I keep hearing it over and over, and not just from the coaches and players. I'm hearing from other people. Tyler Brown.
Tyler Brown, yes. I've been hearing about that name as well, and that this guy is going to come in and be a factor right away. But the one point that I want to make is I think if you look at the offensive coordinators, that's the key. I never really felt that Streeter had a hold on this offense and command of the offense and how to call the offense. I think he was kind of learning from what Tony did and kind of playing off that and being kind of safe. You know, in this offense that Riley has complete control. He understands how it works. He understands when he's going against that defensive coordinator, what he wants to run. And a lot of times, as a coordinator, you can know offense, defense, all you want to, but can you play the game versus the other coordinator and what that other coordinator is doing and trying to do against you? So I think now I feel like we have an offensive coordinator that has more control of the offense. I didn't think Streeter really did. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not in that clubhouse, but I don't always know. But I felt like Streeter really never had control of the offense. And I think that Riley does. This is his offense. He's bringing it to you. And so now he knows how to play the game with the other defensive coordinator that he's going against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's gonna help. And by the way, you got another question here from Scott Millsap. He says he wants to know, do you know if Coach Goodwin's going to consider to work in the booth this season? Scott, I can tell you I don't know that yet, but I tell you when we're going to find that answer out. Probably on Friday. Clemson's having the Beanie Bowl, and they will have the that's when they work through all those things, who's going to be in the booth, what the communication's like, all that stuff. So we're going to have an answer probably later this week, maybe first of next week, we'll be able to give you that answer. So I don't know right now. I would say just based on last year, he would probably be on the field again. And then in most cases, the defensive coordinator is on the field. And Levon, I've always known that to be the case. Now, sometimes defense coordinator does go up top, but most of the time, the defense coordinator is always on the field, right?
Sometimes, yeah. It really all depends on the guy and really who you have on the field. Now, if you have a guy that you can trust on the field, then it could be a little different, right? So, for example, when I was with Pittsburgh, we had Don Capers and Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau has been a defensive coordinator beforehand. So Don Capers probably felt like, well, Dick can control it from the field perspective. I can go up and I can see the game a little better. Trust me, I've been in both where I'm on the field as a coach and also in the booth. I think for a defensive coordinator, I think it's better to be in the booth because you can see it. The issue is the communication to the guys on the field. And sometimes maybe you don't trust that you got a guy on the field that can bring the guys together, talk to the guys, and relay what you're saying. But I think for a defensive coordinator, you can see the field better. You can see exactly what's happening to you. And if you can relay that, I say be in the booth. That's just me. But some defensive coordinators, they want to be on the field. They want to have that feeling of the game. But I think you honestly see the game better being in the booth. I think Wes would be better in the booth, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can see that, and I'm with you.
He's such an analytical guy.
Mm-hmm. He's got Stephon Anthony on the team this year. I don't know how Stephon.
I think what you need on the field is a guy who can get people in order, who can get guys to play, who can talk to them in a way that they understand. Sometimes you have to speak the language that guys understand. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if Wes is that guy. I think Wes is a very smart coordinator. I think he knows football, no question about it. But can you get a guy face and say, "Hey, man, what you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Hey, we need. Hey, come here. We need for you to step up." Does he have that guy who can get in guys' face that they respect and get them in line on the field? Sometimes you need a guy like that. I don't know if Wes is that presence. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if he has that in him.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think he'll be better served in the booth because he can see the game, what's going on. He can be a little bit behind the scene. You just need a guy that's on the field that can get guys ready and get them, hyped up and can relay the information that I know Wes knows about the game.
We asked about Chad Morris being back on campus. They wonder if he's next in line, if Riley should leave. That's a good question. Coach Morris, first of all, his son is playing as a starting quarterback over at TCU this year. And so Chad's going to be Monday through Thursday. It's going to be with the Clemson Tigers and helping get Clemson ready for the next opponents. So basically, he's always going to be a week ahead. So when Clemson's playing Duke, he's already looking at the next opponent. And
right.
So understand that. So he's not going to necessarily be working directly each week in that sense of, working for that week's opponent. So as an analyst, he's going to be doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, getting them ready for the next week and getting them so they're up to a good start. So right when that game's over, they start working immediately on the next game. That's kind of how that works now. It's a totally different beast on how football is. So with that said, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know if Chad Morris is going to replace Riley, if Riley should go. But you know what? That's a very good problem for Dabo Swinney to have, because if Garrett Riley gets a head coaching job this year, that means Clemson probably made it back to the college football playoff. And so that's a problem you welcome and you'll take and go. I know there's another guy out there that's not doing anything right now. That was former offensive coordinator at Clemson too. Actually saw him and that guy being Jeff Scott. Jeff Scott and Chad Morris coming off the field at one of the practices a few weeks back. So they obviously are still very good friends and talk a lot. So you never know what the future lies. Chad Morris is kind of like Dabo said, like when Ted Roof was here or when, Terry Bowden was here. He's kind of filling in that role, kind of understanding, learning some new things so he can maybe get another opportunity to be a head coach down the road. I think that's what this is. It's the same kind of situation, and we'll see what it means for the future. I don't know. But right now, I don't think that's anything Dabo's thinking about or anybody else. Though I do say Dabo always has a plan in place before anything ever happens. He's always kind of knows where he wants to go with things. But right now, Levon, I just don't think that's something they're thinking about at this moment.
No, of course not. You don't want that in the forethought of your mind to think like, okay, well, this happened, then we're going to do this. No, you don't think that way. But sometimes, just in case, never know. And like you said, Will, that's not a bad problem to have. Chad Morris has proven himself more than worthy of being a great offensive coordinator and how to get it done, and guys like his system. Mm-hmm. So it's not a bad thing. But hopefully, if that's the case, man, we're in the playoffs. We're in the championship.
Hey, when people come and get your coaches, it's a good thing. It's always a good thing, and that means you're doing what you're supposed to on the field for the most part. And I don't see Garrett Riley being here longer than a couple of years, man. He's too smart of a coach. He's going to get an opportunity now that he's at Clemson. If he can take Clemson to the college football playoff after taking TCU to the national championship, and he does that in back-to-back years, there's no doubt in my mind he's a head coach next year.
There's no question. Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
So, and then what Clemson does from that point, I don't know. Kyle Richardson, another person commented on that. That's a guy that could move up and become the new coordinator. Maybe so. I know he's been with Dabo now for a good number of years, and Kyle's a really smart guy. And, hey, look, I wouldn't mind it. Say what?
Rock Hill.
That's right.
Man, he was a heck of a head coach.
Heck of a head coach. You go look at his record at Rock Hill, man.
They were rolling.
They were. They had some darn good football teams. And he's a smart offensive mind. He really is. So
I've actually been in his office when I was recruiting for FAMU, and we talked football. He knows what he's talking about. He does.
Absolutely, he does. Levon, I'm going to ask you this. Okay, you brought this up at the beginning of the show. In 1989, you guys went to Tallahassee. You beat the snot out of Florida State down in Tallahassee. You guys were riding high. You were number 7 in the country, undefeated. You go to Wallace Wade Outdoor Stadium, and you get humbled by the Duke Blue Devils as they upset you guys. After you guys had a 14-0 lead, by the way, in that game, you get humbled. You end up losing that game, I think 17-14. And all of a sudden, your national championship hopes just went out the window.
Right.
And I remember you telling me this when we were just talking one day, that it took you guys about 5 to 6 weeks to totally get over that. And it ended up costing you a game against North Carolina State that you shouldn't have lost to. Not North Carolina State, Georgia Tech, that you shouldn't have lost either. Right. And you said it really did upset the team, and you wondered maybe if you let trying to win a national championship weigh too much on your mind. So I asked that, or I bring that up because we've heard so far in the preseason the Clemson players have come out unlike ever before. And I've been covering this team since 2004. And so during the whole national championship runs, I could tell you on my hand how many guys actually said they were going to win a national championship, or the goal was to win a national championship. And it ain't more than 5, I can tell you. Okay. But this year, it's like this many. I'm going to hold both my hands up. It seems like every player we talk to brings up the goals to win a national championship. We want to win a national championship. Dabo Swinney was on a video that came out last night all over social media where he told the 2019 recruiting class, you're the only class since 2013 that hasn't won a national championship. You're it. So what are you going to do about it? And so all the players have, Levon, are they putting too much pressure on themselves? That's kind of what I'm asking. And if they were to lose a game, say they lose that Florida State game, can they recover from it?
I think that when you start talking about national championships, a lot of times teams that actually go to the national championship, they weren't even really considered to be in that race. If you look at, I'd say TCU last year, they probably weren't really expected to go to the national championship. They did. They just kind of took one game at a time, played a game, whatever was in front of them, took care of that, and not look so much forward because I think you can put a little bit too much pressure on you. I think you could be a little stressed. And so what happens when you're playing against a team and it's close? You start thinking about, oh, we're gonna, we're gonna blow our chances. We're not playing the national championship. I just don't think you. I think you could probably have that as a goal, but it's a long term goal for you. You got to take care of the teams you're playing, and as the national championship gets closer, then you can probably think about it a little bit more. But I am of the approach that you take care of business at hand, and you let the national championship come. But when you start talking about national championship and you haven't been there in the last couple of years, I think what you're doing is you're adding fuel to the fire of other teams. Because they're listening to that. It's like, oh, you guys think you're going to the national championship? We'll see about that. We're going to make it tougher for you. Right. So I think you go into the season sometimes and you may even think that you're the best team. You don't have to tell everybody. You don't have to let people know. You can basically say, oh, hey, we're just taking it one game at a time. A lot of times what happens is you give other teams some added fuel. You never want to do that. Especially at the start of the season. Now Duke hears that. They're competitors.
Yeah.
Say what you want to. They're on scholarship. They're competitors. They're going to try to play you hard now. Oh, you going to the national championship? We'll see about that. So I don't think it's great talk. I don't really totally agree. But if you can back it up, back it up. But I don't think there's any reason to give another opponent fuel and say, hey, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. Just do it on the field.
Yeah, it's interesting because Clemson in years past have not done this. And so if you go to Clemson and still the goal is, if you go to the Allen Reese Football Complex and you look for, our goal is to win the national championship anywhere in that facility. Me and Levon have both been in the facility, so we know this. You're not going to find that anywhere. You're not going to find it. Clemson's goals have always been this: win the opener.
Yeah.
That's the first goal. The second goal was what used to be win the division. Now I think it's advance to the AC championship game because there is no divisions anymore. The third goal is to win the state championship. That's beat South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth goal is to win the ACC championship. And the final goal is to win the closer. Now, the reason Dabo does it that way, because his thing is this: if we do those other four, then the fifth will take care of itself. If you do it, exactly. You got a chance to play for a national championship that way.
National championship will take care of itself.
Exactly. So that's why it's not a goal at Clemson. So to hear now, Coach Sweeney was saying it to fire up his team. That's what he was doing. It was a motivation. It wasn't supposed to get out in the public. That stuff was supposed to stay behind the scenes. It wasn't for anybody to see. So Dabo's still publicly, you're never going to hear Dabo Sweeney say the goal is to win the national championship. But the players have said it, and that's what makes it interesting, is that they're saying it, and that's something that they haven't done in the past. Players have not said that's their goal of theirs. And it all started with Tyler Davis back at ACC Media Days, and it's sort of caught fire. And, it's been, Barrett Carter's mentioned it. Rook Roro has mentioned it. Let's see. Jalen Phillips has mentioned it.
But they're players.
Yeah.
Players tend to do things like that.
Yeah.
They tend to hype up other players on the team. They tend to come from more of an emotional place than a strategy place. They're gonna, especially if you get them hot and heavy. You get them hot, they might say anything.
Exactly.
They may say anything to the media. They just may, because you're a young guy, you're competitive, you feel like that no one can beat you. That's the feeling. That's the confidence of a student athlete. So of course you think you're going to win the national championship. Of course, you're going to say that. I just don't think it's necessary. But I'm a grown man. I've been grown for a long time. I'm in my 50s. So I have a little bit more perspective. Now, you would have called me back in 1989. I might have said, we're going to win the national championship this year. Yeah, that's what players do. They do that. They hype up their teammates. They don't really have the perspective sometimes. Now, I would love for us to win a national championship. That'll be awesome. That'll be great. But you have to take it with a grain of salt when players are talking, especially in the preseason. You do.
Hey, Levon, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem, Will. I was about to, hey, you know what, Will? I was about to carry this thing.
You keep going, man.
I realized how important you are to this podcast. I just kept my mouth shut.
No, don't do that. Keep rolling if you see me disappear like that. Had a little technical difficulty, but we're back. I apologize.
Yeah.
That's the thing about live. Things happen. You can't control it.
That's the best thing about it. You can just roll with the punches, you know?
Yeah, things happen. But hey, if you see that happen again and you go solo like that,
I can do my thing?
Keep rolling. Just keep rolling, and you'll know. I'll try to get back as quick as I can.
Okay,
apologize. Again, apologize for technical difficulties, but we're back and we're rolling. Levon, one last question before we get out of here. And it's interesting. First of all, somebody, Grant Lee, says Lamar legend. That'd be you, Levon. Since I'm from Bamberg, and I'm no legend.
The cool thing is I have two nephews. Well, I guess it would be my great nephews. They're my nieces, and my nephews' kids, and they're playing very well at Lamar High. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Always good to see the other Kirklands coming down the line doing their thing, man.
But the thing is, my oldest brother, who passed away, that's their granddad. And people amongst the family, like my brothers, will tell you that my brother Ernest was probably the better athlete and a better player of all the Kirklands. So they get a lot of that gene from them. So, man, Zori and Zoom, we'll be rooting for you this week playing against Dylan. You guys got a task. But, yeah, man, Lamar, man, we keep the tradition going.
That's what you do, man. Hey, my Red Raiders, by the way, are number one in the state. So got a big win over your boy Henry Guess's Edisto Tigers. We beat them 42-6, I believe, the other night. So off to a good start. We beat them, I think, 20 years in a row. I call it the Battle of the Big Chick. Is what me and Henry. That's what I call it to Henry. Big Chick is in Bamberg. It's a great chicken place. Me and Henry both love it. So, so I always call it the Battle of the Big Chick. And so we end up with Henry owes me Big Chick. That's kind of what I'm saying to Henry. And so he needs to go to Orangeburg. Give me some Big Chick. Yeah. So anyway, I digress. Before we get out of here, we got a few more minutes here. We appreciate all you guys joining us again. Please, download us on iTunes. Excuse me, your iPods, Apple, whatever. Apple Podcasts. You know what I'm saying? Download us and like us and subscribe. We greatly appreciate that on YouTube as well. Also like us and subscribe at the Clemson Insider. We do appreciate you doing that. Thank you all for giving us comments and all. And we appreciate you guys more than you know. And for all you guys that have commented on YouTube and everything. If you're listening to us on Twitter, we can't see Twitter. They don't bring those across. So I apologize ahead of time if we didn't get to any of your comments, but what I'll do, I'll try to go back and answer them as I go back through Twitter later on. Anyway, realignment, Levon, has been a big discussion this offseason. We saw what happened with the Pac-12 now, the defunct Pac-12, if you will, as those Washington and Oregon went to they joined Southern Cal and UCLA in the Big Ten. And then we saw what happened with the other guys where Utah and Arizona State and Arizona all went to the Big 12. So it's crazy how that conference is now just falling apart. And so there was discussions that Stanford and Cal could possibly come to the ACC. Now, that was shot down. It's not going to happen. That nobody voted for it. Clemson was one of the teams that said no, thank you. So did North Carolina. So did NC State, and so did Florida State. No surprise. But August 15th came and went. Everybody was like, what is Florida State, Clemson going to do? Are they going to go? I can tell you this much. Just because August 15th has come and gone, all that means is Clemson and Florida State will have to play in the ACC next year because you got to let the conference know by August 15th if you're going to be available for the 2024 season. Okay, so Clemson and Florida State are going to play next year, okay, in the ACC. But that doesn't mean that they're not leaving. And so we don't know if they are, when they will, or all these things that we've talked about before. But just understand, August 15th doesn't mean they're staying necessarily either. It just means they have to stay. They're guaranteed at least one more year in the ACC right now. But there was a thing came out late last week that, the ACC presidents and stuff were getting together and they were voting, and that the ACC was going to bring Stanford into the conference. Those reports coming out of the West Coast, out of Stanford. That was not even close to being true. I can tell you that. Trust me on this. Talking to my sources, that wasn't even close to being true. There was no vote. So I can tell you that that is not accurate. And as we got into this week, it's been obvious that hasn't happened. Nobody's reporting it. Nobody's even coming close to reporting it. And I always understand people when you're looking to what somebody says, pay attention to two groups of people, reporters, okay, to what something's true or not. Pay attention to the local beat writers, such as myself, who cover the beat every day and are working things. And then pay attention to the national guys who cover the national beat. If those guys aren't reporting anything, then it's probably not true. Always understand that. And so that's how it works. And trust me, we're going to know as fast as anybody if those things are true. And so anyway, but the question is, Levon, is realignment finally finished for right now? Can we finally just talk about football, Levon?
I think we really can. I think that it's too close to the season to really talk about that kind of distraction as far as, what team is going where. Are you moving? I think if I'm a head coach, I want to talk about the next game, or I want to talk about my 5-star player that's doing a great job. I don't want to talk about something that's really totally out of my control, that I really don't really have a say-so about. So from a coach's perspective, of course you don't want to talk about this. It should be over with. I mean, let's just regroup next year and see what we do. Let's go into the season where we are and play our games. So I think for now, the talk is kind of done in the public's eye, but I'm sure people are behind the scenes seeing what could be done.
I think so too. I think it's done. Thank goodness for right now. I think everything's going to focus and everybody, because next week 0 starts this coming Saturday. And so college football's here. And I think we're going to focus on the season now. And I think that's where everybody wants it to be, even though I say that. And then what happened last year at this time was UCLA and USC made the jump. So what do we know? So
it can always change.
It's such a fluid situation. It's never the same. A gentleman on YouTube, a good crypto win. I like that name. Anyway, he is a Steelers fan and a Tiger fan. And he says, are any of you guys going to Vegas for the Raiders-Steelers game? He's looking for tickets. So, but he's all having an issue because that's the same week as Clemson to FSU. So, hey, if there's anybody out there, answer his, see if you guys can help him out and help him find tickets. As far as me and Levon aren't going, well, I can't speak for Levon.
No, I'm not going to that game. No,
I'm not going because obviously I got to cover the Clemson Florida State game. So that's why I'm not going. But I do plan on going to the New England game on December the 7th, Thursday night game. Me and my buddy are going to go up there, Levon, to Pittsburgh to watch that Thursday night game. So that is going to happen. So Sam, get your tickets, dude, if you're watching this. So,
but I am going to Mexico City. They're having a watch party there. If you know anything about Mexico City,
they love the Steelers.
Huge Pittsburgh Steelers fans.
Yes,
I'm talking about over the top Pittsburgh Steelers fans.
Levon,
me, Cardinal Lake, I think Cordell Stewart. I don't know who the fourth guy is. but we're going to be there, and we're going to probably have a great time. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I really enjoy Mexico City. I really do, because they still know who I am. That's an amazing thing.
Hey, we all know who you are. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that they do. It's crazy. So I'm looking forward to going to Mexico City, and I'll probably go to maybe a Pittsburgh Steelers game this year. I'm planning on going to a Clemson game as well. Especially, let me tell you, when you've been in timeout like I have, and this is one of the reasons why I grew the beard. When you had surgery that puts you out for 3 months, you want to do everything.
You don't want to be in the house.
You don't want. Only time you want to be in the house is to go to sleep. I'm telling you, I don't want to be in the house as much as I've been in the house. So all of you guys who prayed for me, man, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So happy to be back on the show, man. It's going to be an awesome, awesome year.
Yeah, it is. And real fast, speaking of Mexico City, I knew about what you were saying about how much they love the Steelers there, because when I went to the Dallas-Pittsburgh game a few years back in Dallas, and the Steelers fans took over the stadium. I mean, took over Dallas Stadium. And you know one of the reasons why? Because I met several people that I talked to, and the lady that was sitting next to me at the game was from Mexico City. And they brought up a ton of people to the game, and it was unreal. And the Steelers, we didn't win that one, but it was a great game, great atmosphere. And the best thing about it, for the Dallas fan that came on here earlier, we were walking out. Me and my buddies were walking out of the stadium. We're disappointed, just lost an overtime game. And this Dallas fan was sitting about 100 yards from me as I walked out the portal. And he looks at me and he says, "Man, that was the best road win we've had all year."
That's a good one. Hey, to further upset the Cowboy fans, you guys call yourself the America's team. You don't know the history about that.
I know it. I know where you're going.
So if you want to know the history about the America's team, tune in next week and I'll tell you the whole history about it. And you guys will be like, well, dang, I didn't know that.
Listen to that. See, Levon, 3 years ago, you wouldn't have known how to do a tease like that. But, boy, you just did a very good tease. That, my friend, is what we call a textbook tease. And good job, buddy. Good job. Hey, we appreciate everybody watching us first time. How about that, Levon? Watching us, we do appreciate it. Everybody who listened to us, we always appreciate you guys. You've been with us for several years. Please keep listening to us. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, anywhere where you get your podcasts. You can find us and listen to us there. You can also see us on YouTube. If you're watching this, please hit the like button and subscribe. We do appreciate it. Also, let us know on Twitter as well. We appreciate you doing those. And so, for Levon Kirkland, I'm Will Vandervort. Until next time, we'll talk to you later, on Bleav in Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland.